Well, congratulations to you all, and I do this every dinner. This is my 38th out of 39. And we have some great faces here, been here all along. Thank you all, new people, and Deborah, Antoine, and the staff. Honestly, if this gets any bigger, we're gonna have to go to Yankee Stadium. When Gail was talking, I have to say this statistic that we discovered 2 years ago when we looked at the Fortune 500 companies and the women that reached the high echelon. 94% of them had a sports background, 50% competed in college. So what you're doing tonight is still opening a door for women to fulfill her full potential. Now, I started my broadcasting career as a 17-year-old with a work permit in hand for ABC to cover men's swimming with Jim McKay. This was 1965. I know I'm dating myself. But the special moment I want to talk about, and I've had many and I've been privileged over the years, goes back to 1976, around the time that Billie Jean and I met, and a time when I was tasked with covering the Montreal Olympics. Those games were the first games where they had women's basketball. Pat Summitt was on that team. Great old Pat Summitt. Our women's swimming team was favored to win all the medals. Shirley Babashoff was touted as the one that could equal Mark Spitz's mark of winning 7 gold medals. We were all excited about those Olympics. But how frustrating it was then to witness the travesty that played out on the pool deck as the East German team, who we now know used performance-enhancing drugs, stole all the gold medals, but one, leading into the last event of the competition, the last day. They stole the medals from us, but their health was stolen by a system that we now know about. A system we're still dealing with. Seated in the ABC booth, I wondered out loud how our 4 competitors could find it in them to bounce back, to defeat the East German team in the very last relay, because the East Germans had won every event but one leading up to that. Each team member, I said, would have to swim a personal best. And this team had gone through days of ridicule from a press that didn't understand what was happening. They had to fight against feeling bad about what was happening. I sat there in the booth and I wished that they could dig deep, that they could find the champion within. Kim Payton led off the relay against the great Cornelia Ender, who had been sweeping the events. She was behind by a second. Then Wendy Bolio, a married swimmer, really breaking the ceiling of opportunity, took off the blocks and caught the East German swimmers. Then it was Jill Sturkel, who's now a coach, who swam. And there it was, Shirley Babashoff, on her 7th race. She'd had 6 silvers. Shirley Babashoff, who swam her best time. And that team dug deep, beat the East Germans, set a world record. And to me, that comeback was one of the most important swims and Olympic performances in history. I say that because that story was lost in history until the U.S. Swimming Federation decided to do a documentary. Shirley Babashoff went on and delivered mail for 20-some years. She was never recognized until 2 years ago, and now she's back in the sport. So this is an event that I was privileged to cover, and I'll never forget. And it was an event for all. Thank you. So LaChina, how about you? Come up here.
Well, I do have to say that just in case it wasn't obvious with me being 6'8", standing up here in these heels. Lift this up a little bit. I am going to talk about the sport of basketball. And in fact, whoop whoop, WNBA in here? Okay, I see, okay. In fact, I have another Pat Summitt story. Because the moment in my career that shapes the work that I do today started with her. I was fortunate to call a few Lady Vol games while Pat was still patrolling the sidelines. I was in Knoxville one day after a shoot-around, and everyone had left. It was just me in the gym. I was walking across the floor, and someone was walking towards me. It was Pat Summitt. I was nervous. After some small talk, she said, "Come with me, I have something for you." Pat Summitt went back to a room in the arena and brought back a jar of homemade strawberry jelly that she prepared herself. Here was LaChina, this nobody of a beginner basketball analyst, and Pat Summitt, the greatest coach to ever coach the sport that I love. But Coach Summitt never treated anyone as though she was bigger than them, even though we all knew she was. I always remember that Pat wanted to serve the game and serve others, just like she served me a dose of confidence in that jar of jam. I always remember that I am in broadcasting to serve, the way Pat served. No one is ever bigger than the game. We miss you, Coach Summitt.
We do.
For our final award, Sportswoman of the Year in an individual sport, we celebrate a woman who has had broadcasters searching for the right adjective to describe just how dominant she has become and how far she has come. Born in Ukraine, both her legs were damaged by in utero radiation poisoning from the Chernobyl nuclear reactor incident. After living in 3 orphanages, she was adopted at the age of 7 and moved to the United States, where over the course of 7 years, she would have both legs amputated. Instead of hindering her, that only fueled her fire to become one of the most celebrated para-athletes of her generation.